before it's too late.
The Seychelles' remoteness makes it an ideal holiday destination for the rich and famous. Seychellois' staple diet is fish, rice and fruit. They also consider turtle meat a delicacy. Local artisans ensure nothing is wasted.
Here in the Seychelles, we have a problem with overexploited resources like turtles, where in the past, in the last 100 years or so, this very rare animal has become rarer because people have not understood its life cycle. People have treated it as a fish. Whereas it's a reptile, it takes 60 years for them to grow to sexual maturity, and it's very easy to exploit them. It's a worldwide problem. It's worse than the African elephant problem. They have managed to conserve the elephant to such an extent that the populations now have risen to relatively sustainable levels. Whereas nobody in the world has been able to manage sea turtles sustainably. We do have the problem with poaching, and the only way to solve it, we have found, it cannot be with laws. You have to have education, you have to have awareness programs, and you have to have grassroots involvement. It's extremely important. We are working with the World Bank on an integrated project to try and look at the problem in a holistic fashion. The project will look at the artisans who depend on the turtle shell. The project will compensate the artisans for not working in the shell. It will also retrain the artisans into using alternative type of materials. And then along with that, there will be biological studies, there will be education projects. And at the end of all that, there will be a law banning all sale of turtle shell products. So in the last 20 years, we've had a lot of studies, a lot of research on the rare birds, the rare fish, the wildlife of Seychelles. But very little has been done to build up the indigenous capacity of the Seychelles to conserve what we have. And it's only 2 years ago when the government created Conservation and National Park Service that we started to look at this problem. Because conservation basically has been the prerogative of foreigners in this country. And it's only now that we started to train a small group of dedicated conservation managers.
The training program that I'm involved in is part of the environmental management plan for Seychelles. And it's really aimed at the workers in the field, the rangers in particular, in the marine parks and in the terrestrial sites in Seychelles.
One of the places the rangers police is the St Anne Marine Park. With the growing number of tourists, the park is under increasing pressure.
The St Anne Marine Park was the first marine park in the whole Indian Ocean. The training program has mostly been involved in this coral reef monitoring. The state of the marine parks was never really measured right at the beginning when the marine parks were declared. St Anne Marine Park has a very high volume of tourists, and it's very near to the port, so it has pollution problems, it has anchors being dropped, it has tourists snorkeling and touching the coral with their fins, that sort of thing. So we have to get a baseline of how good the coral is. And the way we've been doing that is really very much like you would monitor birds. It's very similar. You just look at the fish varieties that are there, and they tell you how good a habitat it is. The more fish, basically, the better the coral reef. So with the rangers, we've been looking at learning 4 or 5 groups of fish, learning to identify all the species, learning the coral growth types, establishing what percentage cover there is, how much of it there is, and then tabulating all that underwater.
But the battle to save endangered wildlife is not confined to turtles, corals and erotic palms.
The Seychelles has the dubious distinction of having some of the rarest birds in the world. Now, I say dubious because we often advertise to the world that we have rare birds here. But Rare birds means problems. Rare birds mean that many of them are probably on the road to extinction. Now, we have had some successes with conservation. The brush warbler of Cousin Island is one. Now, in the 1960s, ornithologists discovered that on Cousin Island, a very small granitic island near Pralin, the brush warbler was almost extinct. There were only about 20 to 25 of these birds left, and that was the only part of the world where they were.
Cousin Island is owned and managed by the International Council for Bird Preservation, now called BirdLife International. Saving the brush warbler involved a habitat reinstatement program that replaced introduced coconuts with endemic vegetation. This allowed the birds to recolonize the island, and its numbers soared to over 400. Surely one of the most successful recovery programs for a bird anywhere in the world.